been through a time there in the early 2000s. Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you're returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. Today we are going to be doing another Disney history and trivia video, and we're talking about Princess and the Frog. In honor of this year being the 15th anniversary of Princess and the Frog, I wanted to do the history and trivia of that movie. So, also, can we just talk about for a second the fact that it's 15 years old? I can't. Anyway, it debuted in December of 2009, which means that this year would be its 15th anniversary. Basics about the movie: it's about an hour and 37 minutes, and it is set in the 1920s, and it is loosely based on a couple of stories. First story that it's based on, that's like the obvious one, is the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, The Frog Prince, which is the basic, the basic story is there's a prince and he's been turned into a frog, and the princess has to kiss him in order for him to become the human version of himself again. That version is from the early 1812, I think, early 1800s. And then there was a version from the early 2000s by E.D. Baker that was The Frog Princess. And that's the one that's really the basis for the Princess and the Frog movie. It's The Frog Princess. That story from the early 2000s is where the princess kisses the prince as a frog, trying to turn him back into a human, but instead she gets turned into a frog as well. So that's where the writers really got the inspiration for the Princess and the Frog film. So let's talk about who made this movie. Disney, obviously, we got that. But it was co-directed by two very important guys. That's four. Two very important guys, Ron Clements and John Musker. And you may not know those names, but let me just run you through a list of the other films that these two worked on together. The Great Mouse Detective, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, Princess and the Frog, Moana. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. They know how to do the thing, right? And one of the things that made the Princess and the Frog especially special was they wanted to make sure that it was completely traditional animation. They didn't want it to be CGI like so many of the early 2000s movies had been. They wanted to go traditional animation, which is why when you watch it, if you're like me and a lot of millennials, as you were watching it the first time, you're like, this reminds me of my childhood. This seems like real Disney. This seems like good Disney, because we had been through a time there in the early 2000s. There were some, we're not going to mention any names, Home on the Range, Chicken Little. We were thankful to see a return to what I felt like was real traditional Disney. So I mentioned that the basis of the story came from the Frog Princess and the Frog Prince stories, but there was another thing that they incorporated into it, and it's based on a real person's life. And Leah Chase is an entrepreneur, restaurateur in New Orleans. And when they decided that they wanted to set the movie in the 1920s in New Orleans, they went down to New Orleans and did research, as Disney is apt to do. So as they're researching, they meet Leah Chase, and she was such an inspiration that was where they drew Tiana's story and her life from. That was why she started working as a waitress, and then she eventually, I guess, spoiler alert, becomes a restaurateur herself, and she gets to own her own space. That was Leah Chase's story. Another thing that they did that is kind of a callback to early Disney animation is live action modeling for the characters. So they watched Anika Noni Rose, who was the voice of Tiana, and I'll get to the voices in a minute. Y'all know how I do this. I do the history of the movie, and then we go into the fun facts and the actors and stuff. But they watched and filmed her as she was doing her voice acting, and they took little things from Anika's personality and her actual self and put them into Tiana. So if you look at the animation of Tiana and you look at Anika Noni Rose, they look very similar. She has dimples. Tiana has dimples, just like Anika Noni Rose does. And if you've never noticed, Tiana is actually left-handed, because Anika is left-handed. So they incorporated some of her mannerisms and her physicality into the character, just like they used to do with rotoscoping and live action modeling for the original princess movies with Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and all of that kind of stuff. So they brought that traditional animation aspect back into it. And the last part about the creation of the movie, the design of the characters, they wanted to really focus, because they knew, you saw the shadow, Athena has joined us. They wanted to really take care to, once they decided that this was going to be an African-American princess set in New Orleans, they wanted to make sure that it read as her own unique character. They wanted her to have her own ethnic identity and be really her own character. They didn't want to just take the princess formula and just make her African-American. They wanted her to be her own character. They didn't want to just like slap some color into a white princess's face. They wanted these characters to have their own identities and not look like other characters just, you know, reworked. And they made sure that that was a focus in the creation of the animation. Moving into the firsts, you know, we always talk about a couple of firsts, the obvious one being Tiana was our first African-American princess. And I'm not African-American, obviously. I'm very challenged in the pigment zone, but I was thrilled to see a character with a Southern accent portrayed as smart and strong and, you know, all the good things that you want to see in a character, because so many times Southern accents are portrayed a certain way and it's not good. So I can only imagine how awesome it was for people to see themselves in a character like that, because there hadn't been one before. So, I mean, I just have like the tiniest little taste of it as a Southern person, seeing something about myself come to the screen. And I've been blessed to have, you know, basically every princess look like me, skin-wise. So I'm sure it was absolutely amazing, and I hope we do continue to see a lot more diversity and a lot more inclusion in the colors and types of princesses and characters that we see in the future, because it really does make a difference. The next first, I gotta figure out a better way to do this. Princess and the Frog was the first movie since Beauty and the Beast to have the voice actors do the singing and the speaking parts for their characters. A lot of the other movies, they have a separate person come in and do the singing for the characters so that they can have, you know, whatever voice actor that doesn't have to have an actual singing voice that they use. So that was the first one since Beauty and the Beast. It's not the first one ever, but it's the first one since Beauty and the Beast. So it had been a while. And another first since was since Lion King. This was the first Disney animated movie to have more than one song nominated for Best Song, and that was for Almost There and Down in New Orleans. So those were the two songs that were nominated. Unfortunately, neither one won. They should have. Almost There is one of my favorite Disney songs, but they were the first to have more than one song nominated since Lion King. Now let's move into the characters. I already mentioned Anika Noni Rose is Tiana, and she was also, you probably recognize her also from Dreamgirls. She did that with Beyonce and Jennifer Hudson. And another one of the big things is Let the Right One In. That was more recent. She also had some parts in like Bates Motel and The Quad. So her biggest roles that you probably know her from. Next character, I'm going to kind of go through them quickly because there's actually a lot of actors in here that you probably know. Keith David is obviously Dr. Facilier. You probably know him from any number of things. My husband was shocked to know that that was Facilier because he didn't watch Princess and the Frog when it first came out. I don't think he actually saw it until we were married, which is just shameful. But he was like, oh, I know that guy from this, that, and the other. And Armageddon was what he knew him from. But anyway, he's been in The Thing, Armageddon, Roadhouse. He was in Coraline. So Keith David's been in a bunch of stuff. He's got a gazillion acting credits, and you recognize him. And they also incorporated some of his attributes into Facilier's character. You probably noticed that he has the gap in his front teeth like Keith David does. And so just again, English is hard. Again, just a nod to that traditional animation style where they used live action modeling for the animation, and they incorporated the actors' personalities and features into the characters. Playing Eudora, Tiana's mom, is Oprah Winfrey, and I don't think I need to explain who Oprah is. I think we all know who Oprah is, but she was in The Color Purple, and she's Oprah. I mean, next voice you recognize, John Goodman. John Goodman is the voice of Big Daddy LaBeouf, and he is also Pacha in The Emperor's New Groove and Sully from Monsters, Inc. One of my favorite characters in the entire movie is Mama Odie, and she's played by Jennifer Lewis, who is, again, kind of like Oprah. Like, Jennifer Lewis is Jennifer Lewis. Do we need to explain who she is? She's Ruby on Blackish. She is also in Cars for the Disney connection. Jennifer Lewis is Jennifer Lewis. One that you probably don't pick out because it's such a little part, but I think it's really cool that he was part of it, is Randy Newman. And you may not recognize the name immediately unless you are like me and you have 15,000 Disney songs on your like playlists and stuff that you've constantly seen these names. But Randy Newman sings You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story. So he was actually the character Cousin Randy, one of the little cousin fireflies. He was also the composer, one of the composers for the music. So I like that he got to have a little part in there as one of the firefly cousins. And one of my favorite actors of all time, one of my comfort character actors, Jim Cummings. Basically the voices of my childhood. He was Winnie the Pooh and Tigger for all of the things in which Winnie the Pooh and Tigger appear. He was Azul, one of the royal guards in Aladdin. He's Ed from The Lion King, amongst other things in Lion King. I've mentioned this in the Lion King history and trivia video from, like 15 years ago, it feels like. I'll link that up above and down below for you if you haven't seen it. But he actually finished out the song Be Prepared when Jeremy Irons injured his voice, so he wasn't able to finish the song. He's also Pete, like Pete the Cat from Goofy movie, and he's Hondo Ohnaka. If you have been on Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run ride at Disney World or Disneyland, he's Hondo Ohnaka. Or if you've seen Clone Wars, we just finished it for the first time and I'm obsessed. And he is also Darkwing Duck. So, I mean, he is, and there's others. Those are just the few that I wrote down for his Disney connections, but mainly he is Winnie the Pooh and he is Ray the Firefly. I guess I should say who he is in this movie. All right, I'm sweating now. We've been through a lot of actors. So moving on to the Easter eggs, the little fun facts, little things that are stuck in there. Almost all of these are Disney related Easter eggs, things that are from other Disney movies, little nods to other Disney movies. But one that is not Disney related is Lottie's dog. When Big Daddy LaBeouf yells for the dog's name is Stella, and they're in New Orleans. He screams, Stella! Like Marlon Brando's character from A Streetcar Named Desire, which was also set in New Orleans. So that's just like a little nod to the setting. And I think there was also a scene in Modern Family. There was an episode of Modern Family where Cam is screaming for Stella too, isn't there? I think there is. So the rest of the fun facts and Easter eggs are Disney related. One of the most obvious ones is in the very beginning of the movie, you see a lady reach out and she's like flapping a rug. She's dusting a rug off on the balcony, and it is carpet from Aladdin. So hopefully editing Meaghan has been able to get like screenshots and put them, let's make a spot here, put them there so that you can see these things as I'm talking about them. Something that you've probably noticed in a lot of Disney movies, and specifically like Pixar movies, is A113, which is the room at CalArts Animation that a lot of the animators worked in. They try to work A113 into a lot of things. So you see it in a lot of Pixar movies, but it is the label on the streetcar that Tiana jumps onto. So you can see that little thing. That's a pretty common Easter egg if you're looking for Disney-specific Easter eggs. I'm not entirely sure if this is a true Easter egg or not. I'm conflicted. Y'all tell me what you think. They say that this is a King Triton float in the Mardi Gras parade, and it's King Triton-esque. I don't know if it's supposed to actually be King Triton. Like, it looks a little off, right? Like, maybe it's supposed to be King Triton and they just made it, it's an artistic rendition. I don't know. What do y'all think? Y'all think that this counts as an Easter egg? The last two are kind of similar. If you have watched any Disney history and trivia videos, mine or otherwise, you've probably noticed that there's a lot of times where Disney gets to creatively reuse scenes. They will have something that works and they will, retool it a little bit for a new movie. One that has been used a couple of times is a ballroom dancing scene. You're probably familiar with the Sleeping Beauty scene at the end where they are dancing around and Aurora's dress is changing from blue to pink, make it pink, make it blue, make it pink, make it blue. And they're dancing around and there's, kind of an open ballroom floor and there's people watching around the edges. And then this was reused when Beauty and the Beast came out. They had that at the end once the Beast turns back into his human form and Belle is dancing with him and, tale as old as time, blah, blah, blah. And they did it again for Princess and the Frog, and you can see when Charlotte is dancing with Naveen at the masquerade ball, I guess, you can see that they have used that same scene formula for that scene. And one of my favorites, my favorite little reworking nod to a past Disney movie is there's a scene in Sword in the Stone where Mad Madam Mim, during one of her many transformations, her hair is across her face and then she like pulls it out to the side in pigtails and she has transformed. So I actually just did a Disney bound of that. I'll put that there too. But there's a scene in The Princess and the Frog where Louis has some Spanish moss hanging in front of him and he pulls it out to the side, and it's very reminiscent of that scene from Sword in the Stone. So just one more little Disney Easter egg that we snuck in there. That's it. This was a long one, guys. I hope I have edited it down so that it's a manageable, bite-sized video. I don't know why I always take forever and a half to do these history and trivia videos. I just get so into it. I'm sorry. Hopefully these are enjoyable for you. I really like doing the research and finding all the pictures and all that kind of stuff. So let me know if you like these. Give it a little thumbs up. Let me know what movies, rides, shows. I haven't done a show, have I? I don't think I've done any Disney shows. That would be fun. Let me know what things that you would be interested in seeing the history and trivia of, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all.